We know Peke is an extremely strong Orianna. These are actually kind of expected pick bans so far. You know Fnatic was expecting that.
And again, we see the Renekton at least coming out of Royal. The Renekton actually didn't do as well as we thought would do.
Right.
Godlike is an amazing Renekton player, world-renowned for it, but he didn't actually do that well against so as Zac last game. Elise, solid pick by Lucky, he's doing pretty well on it. Although the Aatrox by Cyanide previously did pretty well against Lucky when he caught him out in that top lane, so we'll see if he can pull it off again.
Yeah, Cyanide really stepped up on Aatrox, and it was just the lanes that ended up letting him down a little bit. Fnatic this time, if they can have better control of that mid lane, could allow Cyanide to maybe snowball a bit harder, because Peke did fine in the Zac matchup last game.
Yep. It's going to be interesting to see what the response is here from White, and it looks like he is going for the Fizz. He's actually, I feel he's calling Peke right here if he locks his Fizz in.
That is interesting.
Oh, defaulting back to Gragas.
I'd say a little too dangerous to be playing Fizz on this one. Possibly, but it's up to Whites. These guys like to pull out what they can when they can, and this is the game they would do it. There has to be a release of pressure here, obviously, for Royal, with this being game point.
But one thing you have to realize, like, Orianna does really well against that double revive comp of Aatrox and Zac. Gragas does not do so well, because you let out your burst, but then you don't have that kind of sustained damage and utility that Orianna does have. So I think it would be interesting to see if he actually does pick the Gragas or not. We'll see if he goes.
I would actually be very happy right now if I'm Fnatic, knowing that you have a Lulu with a Corki support, because there's no, since the Vayne is banned, no Vayne hypercarry to worry about. Corki, while he has strong mid-game, and that's what Royal excels in, will now be a little more vulnerable to Fnatic lockdown. Fnatic has more of an AoE composition, and White's is more about saving a single target. So I do like Fnatic's picks and bans the most of the three games in this one.
I would also like to highlight the fact that Uzi picked up Cleanse against Leona this time. I think it's very integral against that Leona matchup as he picks up the Cleanse. And we also see the Lulu backup to protect the Uzi comp again. Lulu is really, really good at doing that. So it should be the thing is there's less outplaying in this lane, I feel. I feel it's going to be a little more passive than this Ezreal matchup there was before.
We've actually seen in both games different setups in the lanes. We've seen the 2v1 and we've seen the 2v2, and the 2v2 actually worked better coming in for Fnatic. However, they weren't able to win. It was a Lulu lane that they 2v1'd against, so as a Zac, pressuring with Glitter Lance, killing him almost under tower, so maybe Cyanide won't get a chance to be in a different lane.
I think it's very important to note here that this is the fastest pick and ban phase we've also had. These guys flew through the champion select. They knew exactly what they want. I mean, after 2 games against each other, with the last game being the closest of the 3, I do feel like Fnatic, even though it was quick picks and bans, came out on top.
I feel like, especially if we see Fnatic roster right here, outside of their typical Cassidy and Lissandra combos, I think this is one of their most comfortable champion sets to run. Going for the Grags, I'm not entirely sure how this Grag is going to pay off. Hopefully Peke can stand up to White and lane this time. And I think if he does, it's going to be really, it's going to shine out too.
Yeah, and also, that's the third AD carry that Pushu switched to now. Is he just desperate to try and find something that's going to work?
I think it worked out so poorly for him in the last game that at least now, with Varus, he can combo with Leona. We've seen that combination fairly frequently before. It has been strong and worked for him, and I think it was also his most played AD carry during the regular season, and he's going back to comfort when it matters most.
And we have to touch on that, but right now, Snoopy, thank you very much for coming up here in Game 3. I know you want to see a Game 4 coming out, so best of luck there. Right now, we are going to put it into Game 3 for us, and it is going to be a huge one. We will see you back for Game 4. You think so?
Well, do. Hope so. Hope so.
Hope so.
I hope so. Come on, Fnatic.
So looking at those lanes, we're talking a little about Puju, we're talking about Uzi, we have to talk about mids as well. There's so much time to do it. So let's start in the bottom lane. Talking about Uzi, talking about Puju. With 3 changes in a row, like you just said, we've seen Royal bringing out champions consistently each game. The comfort level has to change.
Yeah, Royal does seem very confident, and their comfort level isn't thrown off too much by this. The teleport strategy not being brought out by Fnatic. I think the discussion we had about them losing lanes means Fnatic's #1 priority is to stop the bleeding there, and then they'll worry about pulling off a teleport strategy. Until then, Fnatic's just got this last chance.
And more importantly, let's see if there's any level 1 engagements, because they have not gone well for Fnatic so far. Royal Club just know how to fight at level 1.
Yeah, I know. In Game 1, they ran into each other with 5 people on each team and backed away. Game 2, we saw the 3-for-1 kill. These guys are on a collision course for each other.
And they don't want that brush. They got the ward in that they needed, but Royal will still continue to walk forward.
Can they catch one?
Right here.
On the backside?
Oh, they don't want it. First, the Spider's going to see him. Godlake's going to be hit up.
Who is it they're going for? That's going to be the focus target. Lucky maybe. White's has got the Ignite burning. He's going to get away from that one. Cyanide's passive has been burnt. The Ignite will not get White's down. Yellowstar should be able to lock up his cooldown. We'll be back in a moment. We see the defensive ball on him. But again,
wow,
nobody goes down. crazy stuff.
There were 3 flashes burned by Royal, 2 ignites burned by Fnatic, but how do they get away with that? 5 people with Godlike being the first into the brush and not dying. I feel like Royal dodged a bullet there.
And this is huge, considering up to 6 minutes now, you're gonna have 3 lanes without flash. Cyanide can have a ball. He changed up that play style, curbed farming in the jungle, and we saw him a lot more in lane, so it could have a big effect.
Exactly. He's going to have to get very aggressive, but we have to remember last game, one of the things that slingshotted him ahead of Lucky was Lucky's aggression onto Cyanide and Cyanide's ability to then punish that. At this point, actually, Royal is maybe going to play defensively in lanes, which could have the biggest impact of all, because that would mean Pushu may not fall behind as far in farm from Uzi. We do see that 2v2, and we know if Yellowstar gets that Zenith Blade on Atabe, there's no flash to escape.
Well, you say that, but Cyanide's Bloodwell was popped, so he can't go overly aggressive. We'll see how it works out for them in that lane, and as you mentioned, this time around, Pushu cannot get bullied in that lane. You can already see Yellowstar's trying to beat that big man up front, trying to keep him at bay, but Pushu is already taking bursts of damage.
I like what Fnatic has actually done here. We were saying that Soaz had a hard time against this Glitterlance Lulu. All that damage, Peke finding a little bit there, and it was actually body slam taken first by Whites here. Going pretty hard.
Extremely aggressive early laning, even without flash. Body slamming into Peke once he had level 2 is just the risky way that Royal plays League of Legends. They guessed right there, knowing that Cyanide's Bloodwell is down, that he would not be camping at level 2 for a gank, and because Whites was pushing the lane early, he got the harass trade down.
And already, look at this, the top lane. It's starting to happen already, isn't it? 11 to 5 CS, keeping that pressure all the time. Royal just keeps shoving onto the turret.
We know they're shoving, but I'm not willing to call this an advantage yet. It's level 2 to level 2. There's a huge wave stacked up for Pushu to get back into it. Pushu should be able to turtle this one out. I don't think Uzi has taken a big advantage yet, because Pushu and Yellowstar still have a lot of health. They haven't taken too much harass.
Right, see, Godlike has his lane pressured in the bottom as well, so with all of these lanes, Cyanide has a bit to think about. Looks like his mind is teetering towards the lower half of the map, but every image of Royal is on a turret of Fnatic on that mini-map right now.
We see Whites and Peke in his mid lane. Whites has that Ignite available, and Peke is well aware of it, sticking off at the side this time around. He's keeping up close this time. Remember, there was no kills at the start, despite the fact for the 3rd game running we've had very aggressive plays from these two teams. No advantage gained. Bloodwell will be back available shortly for Cyanide. It is like a 3-minute cooldown, I believe it is, overall. And we expect to see around about this now, 4-minute mark. He's going to be looking to come to one of those lanes and see where he can help out. Looks like it might be the top.
At least early on as well, Cyanide chose to farm the jungle, whereas Lucky tried his hand at ganking. He was actually up in that top lane brush about 30 seconds ago, thinking that Cyanide would try a gank for Pushu and Yellowstar, because that has been the general gank focus of Cyanide in the first 2 games. But switching it up a little bit, obviously Fnatic with Peke and Orianna, less of an assassin-based team, not really worried about catching the picks early on in the game. And for the first time, they are laning quite evenly right now. 100 gold difference about 5 minutes into the early laning phase.
We've seen the whole time with the aggression and skill that come from Whites and Peke throughout that laning phase, they just do not fight each other. It's either the respect or the knowledge of where to position, but that lane stays safe, and this allows Cyanide and Lucky to kind of hit the outer lanes. We're seeing now soaking up mid-experience, but there is no pressure being relieved here by Royal. They are still at every turret.
Keeping the pressure on, they're going to lock on towards Uzi. Have they got enough to lock him down? Cleanse was already used out there, pushing forced to back away by Tabe. A good trade overall between both teams.
And Tabe actually has his Ignite still. He saved it for that one, whereas Yellowstar's is down. This actually gives Royal a bit of an edge if Yellowstar decides to go in again. I don't know if Yellowstar is going to account for that. Not very frequently do you see a Lulu with Ignite, especially when the AD carry has Cleanse. You're much more likely to see an exhaust for defensive purposes.
Whoa, Yellowstar just on the outside of that one, holds the Zenith Blade in his pocket, and it looks like they're going to get a little bit of control on that lane. Here's that Sway and CS coming back as Uzi going to have himself back for a purchase, going for that Phage first, but Soaz is taking a little bit of aggression in the bottom lane.
This is a lane that's impressed me actually from Soaz, because you know, obviously Godlike is famed for this Renekton, and we always wondered what he was going to use to counter it. We've talked about the Jax earlier on getting going in one of the matches before, but so far Soaz, as like game 2, he has put up a really good fight against Godlike, and he was the one that got going in game 2.
Yeah, and Fnatic is very defensively farming right now across all lanes. Godlike has been pushed up beyond the halfway point. White's just actually used his ultimate in the mid lane to keep Peke pushed back a little bit. And Cyanide hasn't been ganking out of that, but with all of that being considered, the lanes, while they're slightly tiltering in Royal's favor, are not nearly as bad as they were in the previous match.
Not looking good for Godlike. Bad news bears as he goes into this one. It's also going to be Soaz. First Blood's looking to come up on the screen, and they're going to chalk this one up for who? It goes to Cyanide.
And now, because there's two people in the top lane and Peke hurts Whites in the mid lane, it's a huge amount of advantages for Fnatic.
Big pressure from Fnatic. That could be the dragon for them. We do see Lucky just lingering to see if he can fancy his chances. His smites have been on point so far, but he doesn't feel that confident up against 4 members of Fnatic.
And right there was just an early preemptive rotation by Fnatic to get back there. And Lucky, he's got to get out of that brush.
He was hatching a ward, and he was about to get taken out. 7 minutes in, a very quick dragon coming from Fnatic, and they are definitely putting their foot down and making a mark early in this game.
Oh, blue buff invade as well coming out from Fnatic here. We see Cyanide in there, Yellow Star's with him, and they're going to try and take that away, but they're going to trade this top turret because Soaz was back away. He may get it back in there just in time. I'm not too sure, though. Uzi's putting damage down.
If we think about it big picture, this top lane turret going down was traded for the first blood gold and the dragon, which if we add up is about 1,600 overall gold for Fnatic, whereas that turret is only 750. As long as Fnatic doesn't run into a similar situation as they did in Game 2, where they lose 3 or 4 turrets before they get one in return, it is a fantastic trade for Fnatic.
That's finally the way they need it to fall in their favor. The kills, then the advantages of structures and moving around to grab map control. 8 minutes in, it's only a 500 gold lead, but that dragon helps him out. Oh, the cocoon locks him up. Lucky gets the safety. Looks like they may re-engage.
Yeah, they are outnumbered, though, in their blue buff right now. No, they're not. Yeah, so Fnatic is the one doing the outnumbering. I was thinking that Yellow Star is far from home. He's actually leaving Pushu alone in the bottom lane against Godlike, which is putting a lot of faith in a little old Varus against a monster crocodile.
And that is Royal. They're trying their best to counter it, trying to get that blue